Hey everyone, it's Rich here. Thought I'd do a little video about one of my favorite bands and how many of their albums and CDs and ephemera that I have. And it's the Smiths. And anyone who knows me already is painfully aware of all this information. But I do like to share, and so now I get to share with you all. And there was a fairly still clear memory of how I got into the Smiths and Morrissey's solo work as well. And it goes back to the late 80s when I was finally coming out of pretty much only listening to hip hop. I had friends who were fans of bands like The Cure, Depeche Mode, and The Smiths as well. But it didn't really kick in until about summer of 1989, I'd say, where I began to actually understand that I was really enjoying the Smiths and Morrissey solo work that friends had been playing. And I had a friend who would not stop playing the cassette single of this record. Last of the Famous International Playboys by Morrissey, 1989. This was a very catchy tune, and after a few listens, I couldn't avoid admitting that I really, really liked this song. And at this point, I had heard a few songs from the Smiths and was able to make the connection that they had broken up and he was the lead singer and he was doing his solo thing now. I was also very new to shopping at import record stores and coming to an understanding of how much better they are than the regular record stores that I've been going to for years. And back in 1989, I was still buying about 50% records and 50% CDs, but it was generally heading towards the direction of being entirely CDs that were going to be in my collection. And not only did this have the incredibly catchy title track, but also on the B-side was Lucky Lisp, which has proven to be a very popular and a favorite among Morrissey fans for B-sides. There are two tracks on the B-side, the ever favorite and popular Lucky Lisp, which Morrissey fans know is a classic, and the other is Michael's Bones, which is probably what non-Morrissey and Smiths fans think all their songs sounds like. It's a bit maudlin and depressing, and it's all right, but it's not why you buy the record. And so, being the insane obsessive that I am about music, after this, it was on. In a very short span of time, I went out and bought everything that I could find with the Smiths and Morrissey. I guess I'll start with what I have on vinyl for the Smiths, and beginning with the explanation of why I don't have their first record on vinyl. It's not my favorite record of theirs. It's probably my least favorite. And although I love two or three songs on it, I think are really good, I'm not going to spend premium money to get a rough trade original version of the vinyl. It's just not happening. But what I did do is got a couple of the original Hatful of Hollow, which makes a lot more sense to me because I think the versions of the songs here are an improvement over what was the final edition that was released for the CD. There is also a hell of a lot more music here. This is a double LP, and it has the BBC sessions that they recorded between 83 and 84. So there's plenty more here than you would ever get on that first record. And if you couldn't be a completist at that time because of the expense of the import singles for the Smiths records, which were already getting fairly expensive, you could buy this and it would bridge the gap between the first album and Meet His Murder. You would have nearly everything that you would need right here. So I went instead and I bought these, and I have it on CD as well still. And the versions of the songs on this record feel a lot more intimate and personal than the cleaned up, shiny versions that are available on that first record. Although I do feel that this charming man might be superior in the first record format than the BBC version, but that's a small complaint. Also, this one has a really super picture of the band on the inside. It's one of my favorites. And while I am still questing for a complete collection of the Smiths singles, I have only a few to share, but I'm very happy to share them. I love them. This first one here is What Difference Does It Make? with the Morrissey cover, not the Tarrant stamp cover, which is proving to be pretty hard to find at a decent price, but a great single. And next one is the Headmaster Ritual, which is probably one of my favorite singles of theirs because the B-side is 4 live songs. So it's basically a mini Smiths concert, which when it came out was a huge deal and was also a pretty huge deal when I bought it because at that point the only legitimate live releases were this and Rank. I think there were a few scattered live things around, but nothing had been compiled and sounded as good as these did. And next up, maybe my favorite Smiths album. I have an original Portuguese pressing here and the Rhino remaster re-release from many years ago. They both sound great. I don't think one sounds any better than the other does. But I'm also not a vegetarian. So everything on here sounds awesome except the Meat is Murder track itself. That always kind of killed it for me. Like I would lift the needle or I would stop the CD. It's just too much. But the rest of this album, from Headmaster Ritual to Barbarism Begins at Home, and How Soon Is Now is on the American release. That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore, and Nowhere Fast. There are a lot of brilliant songs on this record, and it still gets regular play at my house. Next up in the discography, The Queen Is Dead. This is another import. I believe this is another Portuguese import. And this, except for one song again, might have been my favorite Smiths album of them all. I think Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others is just ridiculous and in a not fun way. And I can see why it might have driven Johnny Marr to distraction to where he thought he might be in the wrong band. But besides that one ridiculous song, everything on here is a banger. And this one might be the one I go to more than any of the others if I want to just drop the needle and sit down and enjoy. Next up is The World Won't Listen, an early compilation. I believe this came out before Louder Than Bombs did, even though I bought this one much longer after than I had Louder Than Bombs. Very enjoyable record, another kind of bridge the gap record in the same way that Hatful of Hollow was. Overall, very solid. My copy sounds like shit because I went cheap. I bought it about 10 years ago for 15 bucks, I think, and it's nothing to brag about. But it is a good placeholder, and yeah, that's all it needs to be right now. And next up, the single for Ask. With the B-side of Cemetery Gates, could have been one of the best ones that they ever released, but for the inclusion of another damned ridiculous song, Golden Lights. I could almost feel Johnny Marr's frustration at this point and wanting to throw his guitar at Morrissey. But Ask is undeniably catchy, and Cemetery Gates is really one of the best songs in their entire catalog. So it's a worthy thing to have. And next up, probably my favorite of them all. Not a studio album, mind you, but a compilation. Easily one of the best compilations that I own in any format. I believe there's 24 songs on here. It's been a while since I played the CD. But maybe 21 incredible all-time great songs on this record. And this is a compilation that you'll find even many non-Smiths fans will begrudgingly give you credit and say that there are great songs on here. Really, this one is so universally awesome that even my wife has found a few tracks that she can admit that she enjoys Morrissey singing on. And the last Smiths single that I own, I still have an incomplete collection of these things, but Girlfriend in a Coma was the first Smiths video that I saw. And although it is a fun little song, it is a very slight and short song to make a 12-inch single out of. And it's really much the same for the B-side, which is a fun little song, Work is a 4-letter word. I very much enjoy that song, but I don't think either of those clocks in at even 2 minutes. I mean, this is a 12-inch record. There is a lot of empty space on this thing. Next up is Rank. the last album that they would release, and a perfect live album encapsulation of how they sounded. This is awesome for those of us who are fans of the band late. I missed any chance to see them live. They broke up when I was about 15 years old. I really wasn't going to concerts anyway. But this is an incredible sounding concert. And up next, the Pablo Cuckoo tapes. This was released only a few years ago, and I don't consider it to be an essential record, but whoever released this knows how crazy completists can be, and if it has the Smiths and Morrissey on it, chances are I'm dumb enough to buy it. These are really interesting early rough versions of these songs, and it's nice to have in the collection, I guess. But I haven't listened to it since I bought it. I have pretty much everything: demo, rough cut, alternate takes, live versions of the Smiths music. I have a lot of it digitally, so there's not a lot of reason to listen to this one. But it is a nice little artifact to have in the collection. And really the pride of my collection at that time, and which cost me a lot more money than I had to spend then, was the last of the famous International Playboys' Interesting Drug Japanese single. It also has Such a Little Thing Makes Such a Big Difference, and Lucky Lisp, and Michael's Bones. But this was awesome to have at the time. It's still kind of awesome to have. It's really not worth anything monetarily. But in 1989, I paid $40 for this damn thing. I think with inflation, that was about $100 worth of spending money. Yeah, so you can guess, I'm really not very bright. Okay, on to Morrissey solo. And that's where I started with all of this. And let's start with what he started with. The 12-inch single for Suede Head. Beautiful classic. Love it. Straight up and down. And a very enjoyable video that came along with it. And also produced by Stephen Street, who and like so much of Morrissey's early solo work, it was produced by the great Stephen Street, who I believe produced all of Morrissey's best music. And when they split, it was kind of a gradual decline in quality. Every Day is Like Sunday. I believe one of the all-time best covers for any single or album. And not only an incredible song, which proved to be popular on the charts as well, it has as a B-side, Disappointed, which might be one of my all-time favorite Morrissey songs. Oh, and We'll Never Marry as the second B-side is pretty great too. And around this point in Morrissey's discography is where I started to catch up to Real Time. This is the single for Interesting Drug, another incredibly great song. No complaints. Now, what may well be my most favorite song in the entire catalog, Last of the Famous International Playboys. I had shared the CD EP of this, the Japanese release. This one, yeah, this one right here. Also, my Morrissey singles collection on vinyl is not nearly complete, and really I would probably stop it cold at 1994. I have a lot of the singles on CD. I'll be showing that because by 1990 I no longer had a record player that I could use on a regular basis, so I bought everything I could as a CD single. But this is the last one I have on vinyl, November Spawned a Monster, which I thought it was a great song, but it really did reveal something about Morrissey, I think, as a person, and would explain why I'm fairly indifferent to this guy now, although I still love the old music. But if you're a fan at all, Bona Drag is the one to have if you don't want to buy any of the other ones. This is a very solid greatest hits compilation. I don't believe there's really much worth skipping on this one if you put the record on the turntable. Just let this play through and enjoy it. It's good stuff. And here's another bootleg. This one is the Wolverhampton Civic Hall concert. Very famous concert. If you happen to own the VHS cassette of Humorist, that was the video compilation, I believe came out 1990. This is a great concert, and it sounds pretty great for being a bootleg, but I'm just glad it exists at all. Because if you're a fan of the band, the Smiths and Morrissey solo, this is an integral part of that history. And also, I was fortunate enough at the time to have seen Morrissey in concert more than a few times, and I did find this program. I forgot I even had this, but I did see pretty much all the Southern California shows of the Kill Uncle tour. I saw him in San Diego. I saw him in LA a couple of times. One of them turned out to be a kind of a mini riot, if you can really imagine Morrissey's fans doing anything that would resemble a riot. But it got pretty weird there for a while. My sincere lament is that any show I've been to that had devolved into a riot, the violence always happened after I purchased all the merch. Like, after I've spent $100 in t-shirts and programs and fucking posters, people decide to tear down the stands and throw shit around. And although it may only seem like a blink of an eye or the transition wipe in iMovie, I've been down in the basement for about an hour trying to find my Morrissey and Smiths singles on CD, and I can't find all of them. We've moved a lot in the last 30 years, but what I did find hopefully is worth showing and hopefully worth seeing. I do have the Suede Head single, which was the first one. As well, I have Every Day is Like Sunday, personal favorite, and the aforementioned single for Interesting Drug and Last of the Famous International Playboys, Killer. November Spawned a Monster. Ouija Board, good song. I believe this is Piccadilly Polare. Yep. This one is Pregnant for the Last Time, which was, I believe, the first time he did a rockabilly kind of sound with his new band. I really liked this one. Next up, Sing Your Life, another song I really enjoyed. Next is My Love Life. It's a alright song, but it seemed like there was a decline in quality really starting to happen here, in my mind at least. This one is Our Frank. I thought it was a really good song as well. We Hate It When Our Friends Become Successful. Pretty good song. This one is Tomorrow? Yes, Tomorrow. Pretty good single. I can't even remember which one this is, to tell you the truth. Hold on. This is You're the One for Me, Fatty. The decline in quality really kept chugging along with this one, to tell you the truth. And here's the last one I bought. Certain People I Know. I actually liked the song, but I was running out of money. I was living on my own, and I could no longer spend $20 for each one of these things. And really, it's where I stopped giving a shit about his solo career, so it dovetailed nicely into just not buying anything anymore. And while searching through those boxes in the basement, I found a few odds and ends. I found the Hatful of Hollow import CD. I paid $30 for this thing in 1990. Again, just ridiculous, man. I couldn't even afford to eat. Also, in the mid-90s, the This Charming Man single re-releases. These were fun. And I had said that I didn't have the Smiths' first album on vinyl, and I also don't have Strange Ways either. But if I ever had a CD player again, I guess I could listen to them here. I mean, I have everything on my computer, so it's no big deal. Even more bits and bobs, odds and ends, is my copy of Your Arsenal, Morrissey, the last album of his that I enjoyed. And this was a gift from a good friend, so I keep it. And the very last one that I bought and convinced me that I should not waste any more money on this dude, Vauxhall and I. Not a record that I really enjoyed. I think I liked one song, and so it was pretty easy at this point to step away and just move on to other things. And everyone who is a fan or not a fan definitely has a right to their opinion. I was a very obsessive fan, obviously, at one time, and I would still call myself a fan of the Smiths without a doubt. But I tend to have to curbed my conversations to say I'm a Morrissey fan, but mainly between 1987 and 1994. If you can bracket it right there, I think that's the sweet spot. I've listened or heard everything he's done since, and I'm not a fan of any of it, and especially some of the shit he says in public and in interviews. I can't really get with any of that. But nothing that this particular idiot says anymore affects me at all and doesn't affect the legacy of the music that he made in the 80s and 90s. And I had mentioned earlier how much these imports cost. And this reminded me of when I first started and I created an account on Discogs to compile all my things into one database. And you get a good idea of what the value is, at least market-wise, for the music that you possess. And like I said, this one cost me a ton of money in 1989, $1990. So I figured I don't listen to any of this stuff anymore on CD. Maybe I could package these things up. I mean, it's got to be worth $500 for all those singles now, right? No, no. This thing is probably worth about $10. And all this stuff is in great, very good plus or near mint condition. It's just the demand isn't there anymore. So I keep them. You know, they take up space. I don't listen to them. Yeah, collectors. We just don't make any sense sometimes.